Allah wa ni'mal wakil, ni'mal mawla wa ni'mal nasir. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Wa salatu wa salam ala ashrafil anbiya wal mursaleen. Sayyidina wa maulana Abil Qasim Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين. Imam Hussein alayhi salam in his mission statement added a stipulation and a restriction that has made our journey towards him more difficult than we can expect it to be. If Islam was not enough, if Amr bil Ma'ruf Nahi anil Munkar wasn't enough, if jihad wasn't enough, if struggling wasn't enough, he added a stipulation that all of these things must be done according to the sirat of the Prophet and Imam Ali. He said, Asiro bi sirati jaddi wa abi. And hence, when we looked at the sirat of the Prophet, when we looked at the sirat of Imam Ali, that's when we saw that the struggle that we undertake in order to reach our Karbala has become more difficult. To reach our destination has become more difficult. In fact, for many it was easy to go forward and give shahadat, to give their lives. But in the meanwhile, while we are journeying and while we are doing this and while we are struggling to make sure that we follow and that we maintain the sirat of the Prophet at that time, this was difficult. And hence, this difficulty, this task that Imam Hussein stipulated became a source of hardship and difficulty. Now, obviously, the difficulty is there, but that should not prevent us from undertaking this mission, this journey. Yes, there are difficulties involved in the sirat, and we see those difficulties that even the closest Shias, the closest companions could not understand some of the practices of the Prophet nor Imam Ali. Whether those practices were done in leniency and in kindness and compassion, or whether those practices were done in strictness and severity. On both sides, people could not understand, and hence they failed to be with the Imams. They could not go along with the Imams. In fact, they would oppose the Imams. They would stand up against and say, we cannot go along with this. Right? Whether these things were done in the extreme of compassion or they were done in the extreme of strictness and severity. And this is why the sirat was given to us. But following the sirat and the rewards and the goal, the intended goal of the sirat should be so sweet that the difficulties of actually practicing it would be overwhelmed by it. If we see the goal, then we can say that, you know what, it's worth it. It's worth it to do that. Why? Because the goal is leading us to Karbala. The goal of practicing this sirat is leading us to Imam Hussein. It's leading us to our Imam. That is the goal that we have, and that's what we see that happens. Now, inshallah, what I want to say regarding the sirat, after what I said the last 2 days, for right now, because just to make it short so that we can conclude and hopefully gain some things from this 3 days of majlis that we had, and to acquire something so that we can actually practice it in our lives. 2 things I'll mention today, 2 things regarding the sirat. First of all, what do we need to understand the sirat? What is it that we need to understand the sirat? And 2, what do we get out of the sirat? And in each of these things, I will mention 2 things. 2 things that we need to understand the sirat of the Prophet, of Imam Ali, of any of the Imams. And two things that we get out of learning the Sirat and knowing the Sirat of the Prophet and the Imams. These are the four things, inshallah, we want to mention today, and inshallah that will help us in hopefully in our lives and in the practical aspects of following Islam. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Allah has made Islam in such a way that when you want to follow Islam, the first thing that is necessary for you to do is to use your aql and your reasoning. The first element and the first thing that is needed to practice Islam, to know the Sirat, to know any teaching of Islam is aql, is fikr, thinking. This is a faculty that we have, and this is a faculty that Allah has built in us, that we should look at and use this faculty in order to practice Islam. Without it, it's very difficult to practice Islam. And now where is this thinking used? How do you use this thinking? Here's where we need to pay attention. How do we say aql is necessary, fikr is, how do you use this thinking? Well, there are two applications of aql in the understanding of Islam. There are two places where you use your thinking and your reasoning and your thought process in order to practice Islam. The first phase or the first level and application of aql or thinking in Islam is to think about the subject itself. What is being taught? What is being said? No matter if it's an ayat, if it's a rule of law, if it's fiqh, if it's sirat, whatever it is, what is it that is being said exactly? To apply your thinking in that term, to understand the subject itself. That's the first phase where aql is used. When you understood the subject, when you know that this is what is being said, that this is the law, and it has become clear to you, then the next application of thinking, the next application, next place where your thinking is applied is to see what that subject means to me. How does it translate into my life? What does this sirat have to do with me? What does this law have to do with me? How do I get close to this subject? This is the second place where aql needs to be applied, where thinking needs to be applied. So the first place is to think about what is being said, to use your aql to understand it good. The second place is to see how that is useful in my life. How do I make that a part of my life, and how do I come close to me? And this is where you see that application of aql now takes a whole different turn. And that law becomes personal. That sirat becomes personal to me. Now every individual has to use his aql to see how do I get close to that. Because my way and my journey to get close to this law or this sirat is different than everyone else's. I have to see how is it useful for me. How can I get close to there? What is stopping me? What is my obstacle and what is my struggle? This is the second place where aql is for. For example, Allah says, Aqimus salat. And we looked into that ayat and we see that, okay, prayer, salat has become wajib on us. It is something that is good. It is, Allah is describing it. Now we go and learn how to do it. We have learned the subject, we know the rules, we know the procedure, and everything is there. Now the second part of what we need to do comes. How do I get close to this salat? How do I make myself get close to prayers? For some people, in order to get close to prayer, they have to remove some obstacles that are in their life. For some people, the obstacle might be wealth. For some people, the obstacle might be power. For some people, obstacle might be arrogance. For some people, obstacle might be poverty. For some people, obstacle might be hasad. Whatever the obstacle is for you to get to that prayer, you have to get rid of it. And not everyone has all of them, and not everyone has one of them. Everyone has a different one, and that's where now we need to think, what is stopping me from praying? What is stopping me from getting close to it? I know prayer, but what is stopping me now from going there? Whatever that obstacle is, I want to remove that obstacle. Now it becomes individual. Now it becomes personal. Now it becomes you applying the law to yourself and applying and using your thinking to see this is what's stopping me from going there, and hence for me, my jihad is this. Not everyone has the same jihad. Not everyone has the same struggle. Everyone is different. And sometimes opposites apply also. For some people, you see that if they if they become ghani, you see they start coming closer. For some people, if they get rid of their wealth, they start coming closer. For some people, if they get in charge, you will see they come closer. If you see some people who have arrogance, they need to get rid of that arrogance to come closer. For everyone, it's a different method of getting there. And this is where you see that you need to apply that thinking to yourself. Let me just explain that with a little bit if you send me a lot of salawats. What do you need to stay away from in order to get to prayer? Is what you need to think about. This is where aql is used. This is where you need to use aql. And this is the first element of understanding Islam and practicing it. Understanding the seerah and practicing it. Right? You need this. Otherwise, you can read the seerah of the Prophet and Imam Ali and you would never know how to practice it. You will never know what it means to you because we don't use our aql in it. We'll always misunderstand these two levels of using aql. Either we don't understand the subject or we don't understand how that subject applies to us. You have heard this example before in this hadith before. Someone came to the Prophet, he was in the masjid, and they said that, Ya Rasulullah, someone is committing a sin right here. And obviously when people heard that, the Prophet is there, the companions are around him. Now those cowards who never fought in any battlefield and always were found running away from battlefields, they stood up and said, Rasulullah, give us permission, we'll go there and cut their necks off, allow us to do it. Right? Obviously what happens is that stood up and now they're in charge, they can go there and do anything, they have help. Right? So they stood up and they said, Rasulullah, let us go there, this and that. Rasulullah said, no, sit down. Ali, go and see what's going on. You see, he sent Imam Ali. Let alone, see, it's not the fact that Imam Ali is the Imam, he sent him here. Understand this. Right? There's a reason why he sent Ali and he didn't send others. It's because, other than the fact that he is, masoom, he has more knowledge, he has all these things, but the fact is that Ali thinks. Ali uses his reasoning, his aql. When Imam Ali went there, you see he used his reasoning. He went there in such a way and made so much noise going there that even if there was someone there, they would run away. And when he came back and said, Rasulullah, there's no one there. Alhamdulillah, sit down. My friend, understand what we gain from this. What we gain from this is that those who have reasoning, those who have thinking, know what is the situation where you have to be lenient and where do we have to be hard and severe. When you don't know that, then in the time when you should be merciful, you are hard. And in those places where you should be hard, you are lenient. These are the mistakes that are made. And this example is showing us that those people who have aql, they should be the ones who actually go there and propagate Islam. Let others know about Islam. People who don't use their reasoning, they end up, when they get something in their hand to beat up the people with, they make everyone's life hell. Right? You get one thing and you see everyone becomes hell. For example, you see the thinking of Wahhabis. What is the thinking of Wahhabis? Right? They got one issue that they raise up, that for example, you shouldn't pray to the dead and that's it. They got a stick in their hands and they beat everyone up with it. Make everyone's life hell. Have no clue where they need to be slowing down, where they need to be severe. This comes through reasoning and thinking. So the first element in understanding Sirat is to use your aql. Allah gave it to us. Without it, it won't help us. You can listen to as many majalis as you want, listen to as many lectures as you want, but until you don't use your thinking in these two levels, one, understanding the subject and then translating it into your life, it will never be useful for us. So the first thing you need in order to understand the seerat of the Prophet and the Imams is reasoning and thinking. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala. The second thing that a person needs in order to understand the seerat of the Prophet and the Imams, right? One is thinking. One, he should think. And I told you where to think, right? In what places to think and how to think, right? The second thing that he needs in order to understand the seerat of the Prophet and the Imams is called a healthy heart. Qalb Salim. Qalb Salim, a healthy heart, is a heart that is not contaminated. It is not contaminated with sins. A heart that is contaminated with sins can never understand a subject correctly. You will see that its vision is always blurred and its objective is always deviated. A heart that is unclean, no matter how much you teach it, it will be deviated. It will never understand things correctly and it will never apply things correctly. This heart that is necessary, it's necessary to have a healthy heart. That's called Qalb Salim. How do you get that? Very simple. Very simple, my friends. How do you get that? How do you get this heart that is Salim? Very simple way I'll give you. And alhamdulillah, I can assure you that all of you who are here have a heart that is Salim. Why? Because of the fact that the way that you get this heart which is Salim is by rectifying your relationship with Ahlul Bayt. This is how you get it. This is how you get a healthy heart. Someone who has rectified their relationship with Ahlul Bayt, they have corrected their books with Ahlul Bayt. They have made themselves clear with Ali, clear with Fatima, clear with Hassan, clear with Hussein. You see there, that is how you know that this person has a healthy heart. You know, how can you say that? Well, there's a hadith in regards to that, right? Very simple hadith, you have heard it many times. How do you get close to the Prophet? How do you get close to the Prophet? Rasulullah has said, Ana Madinatul Ilm wa Aliyun Babuha. This is not a Shia slogan, an empty slogan that we say, you know, this is a slogan, Ali is the door of Allah. No, it is a reality. You want to get to Rasulullah, then the way to get to him is Ali. Rectify yourself with Ali. Make your relationship strong with Ali, you will reach Rasulullah. Make your relationship strong with Fatima, you will reach Rasulullah. Make your relationship strong with Hassan and Hussein, you will reach Rasulullah. This is not a slogan, it's a reality. This is how you gain there. How much do you cry for Hussein? How much do you do matam for Hussein? You see, this is where you see a person is healthy. You know, Ayatollah Marashi Najafi, one of the Marajeh of our times, he passed away. Very well known. Ayatollah Marashi Najafi, in whom he has a library, you know. His history is very well known, this and that, you know. This is his statement. I'm giving his statement. He said, right, and you know, without, you know, obviously explaining who Ayatollah, I'm sure everyone knows Ayatollah Marashi Najafi, you know, his history is well known, his life is well known, he's one of the most respected ulama of our time, and like one of the best marajeh of our times, you see. And this Ayatollah Marashi Najafi said, this is his statement that he, you know, that I read in a book, where ulama were speaking regarding Imam Khomeini. He said, you know, when we fell in love with Imam Khomeini, he said, you know, we fell in love with him since very young. Because as youngsters, when we were young, we used to see that he would be the one who would cry for Imam Hussein the most, and he would be the hardest one doing the matam. And we knew that his love for Ahlul Bayt is what is that gave him that heart. You see, this is, when you apply yourself to that, then you understand how much have you corrected yourself with Imam Hussein? How much have you corrected yourself with the azan in the morning of Imam Hussein? This is what makes you have that. That's how you know someone has a healthy heart. How much have they rectified themselves in this? This is how you know. And when you have that, then when you look at the seerat, you will see that that is the second thing you need, other than the aql, in order to make sure that you're reading the seerat right and applying it right. This is how it happens. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. I want to also give the example that is in Ziyarat Ashura in regards to this. But inshallah, I will abstain from that in order to get to the other points. Maybe, all right, I will say something in regards to that. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. This is a statement in Ziyarat Ashura. When we read this, and from here we can understand that the statement that we are making, we are told to make. He says, Ya Aba Abdullah, inni ataqarrabu ila Allahi wa ila Rasulihi wa ila Amir al-Mu'mineen wa ila Fatima wa ila al-Hasan wa ilayka bimuwalatika. He says that I want to go closer to Allah. I want to seek nearness to Allah. I want to seek nearness to the Prophet. I want to seek nearness to Ali. I want to seek nearness to Fatima. I want to seek nearness to Hassan. I want to seek nearness to you. But how? Bimuwalatika, through your love. Through your love. Through this love that I have for you, I want to seek nearness. In other words, it is this love and the expression of that and the intensity and growing intensity in that makes us come closer to understanding Allah, understanding the Prophet and the Imams. This is how it happens. This is where a qalb salim comes from. And hence, if we understood that, then we know how much importance we need to give to this in order to make ourselves healthier so we can understand the seerat. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So these are two things that are needed in order to understand the seerat of the Prophet, my friends. These are two things that are necessary. Right? And there are others, but inshallah I'll just limit to these two because of the lack of time, and we just want to go through these things so that we understand what do we need in order to understand the seerat. The seerat that Imam Hussein has mentioned in his mission statement and said that this is what you need in order to be with me. This is what you should focus on in the seerat, right? And this is what we want to understand. How do we gain that seerat? So, what do we get out of the seerat? Two things I will mention. What are the benefits of learning the seerat of the Prophet? And Imam Ali now understands, seerat is not one practice of the Prophet. For example, he did something at some time. That doing one thing at one time doesn't make it a seerat. Seerat is something that was often done by him. It was his lifestyle. Seerat is different than some of the actions of the Prophet that he did sometimes. A lot of times people are having this misconception about what seerat is. And they don't understand the difference between seerat and a particular action of the Prophet that was done at one time. For example, they say, one of the seerat of the Prophet is that he used to have long hair. Right? He used to have long hair. And when we look at it, when did the Prophet have long hair? Where did he have long hair? There's only one incident that we see in his history where we look at that and say that, okay, at this point in his life he had long hair for a reason. And that is when he was going towards Makkah and he was blocked. He could not make Umrah. So Rasulullah promised him that this Umrah will be fulfilled. I will fulfill it for you. So Rasulullah at that point said, I will not cut my hair until I do it as taqseer in Umrah. So at that point onwards, he did not cut his hair, let it grow until Allah fulfilled that promise and made him reach Makkah, so that when he went to Makkah, he cut his hair by doing taqseer and umrah. So people look at that incident of the Prophet and say, well, his seerat was that he had long hair. No, he never had long hair. Right? It's only that point that he had long hair. You see, this is why when people don't know how to read the seerat, they take one action of the Prophet and say, well, this is the seerat of the Prophet. Seerat is the general practice that the Prophet and Ahlul Bayt have done, and this is what we are looking at. What is their seerat? How things work out. Right? And this is what's important, how we need to read into this. So, what do we get out of the seerat? My friends, the first thing when you learn the seerat of the Prophet, when you learn his seerat and his practice of Ahlul Bayt, the first thing you get out of it is perspective. Is the right perspective on things. How to look at things in the right way. What is the right angle of looking at things? We might look at something but completely get the wrong message from it, completely get the wrong idea from it. I just give an example how. When we read the seerah, the first thing we get out of it is to get the right perspective in life. How do I do this? It's not what I'm doing, but how I'm doing this. That's very important. Sometimes most of the issues that we have in communities is not what we do, but how we do it. Not what we do, but how we do it. And you see, by the method and not knowing how the right methodology of doing things is, we end up in a mess, and the whole community ends up in a mess because of the fact that it's being done in the wrong way. Not that what you're doing is right or wrong. What you're doing is right, but you're doing it in the wrong way. For example, I can give you a very crude example, let's say. And, just as an example, so that you understand. Sometimes you see when you want to let someone know that his father is calling him. So obviously you see, your beloved dad or your respected father is calling you. Alright, so alhamdulillah, my father is calling me. Now, the same thing you can say, and it's a reality also, but you see the method is wrong. The person who is with your mother is calling you, who sleeps with your mother is calling you. What is this? You see, what he's saying is right, but the method he's using is completely wrong. And see, most of the problems that we have is that we don't have the right perspective on things. Do things in the right angle. We don't understand it. What the Seerat does, by learning it, it gives you the right perspective on things, how to look at things in the right way. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was after he did the tawaf around the Kaaba, he was walking to drink Zamzam, towards the Zamzam to drink the water of Zamzam. And when he went there, he saw certain other Muslims, drinking some sort of a juice. It was grape juice. They were drinking grape juice, And so they saw the Prophet and they offered him, please have some. So Rasulullah said, all right, he went there. He was on his way to get to them, so he can take their offer. And so Abbas, the uncle of the Prophet, right, he told the Prophet that, listen, what do you want to drink that? I'll go some, if you want to get some juice, I'll get some clean juice for you. This, they're using their hands and this and that's dirty. Using their hands. Rasulullah said, no, I want to drink this juice. I want to be with them and accept their offer. Right? And he went there, sat with them, he drank with them. Alhamdulillah, it happened. Now, when we look at this action of the Prophet, and you look at this is a seerat, that he did it all the time. What do we get out of this? Well, what we get out of this is that after tawaf, it's mustahab to drink grape juice. Now, does this hadith mean that? Right? Or, for example, if you have a choice between clean grape juice and dirty grape juice, choose the dirty one. Is that what we gain out of this? What is the Prophet trying to teach here? What is the lesson in this for us here? How do we apply this to us? It has nothing to do with the grape juice or after tawaf you drink this or in this hands. All the Prophet is saying is that be one amongst the people. Be one amongst the people. Be with them. Don't be self-conceited that, hey, how can I go with these guys? They're dirty. How can I go along with them? No, just be one amongst them. Get rid of your arrogance. Don't think that you're better than anyone else. You're one amongst them. And you see the Prophet, this was his seerat all his life. He never had airs about himself. That, no, you know what, I eat differently. I eat there, you all eat here. You see, he was one amongst the people. This was the seerah. This is what we see in the Prophet. This is what we see in the Prophet. And hence he's trying to explain that to Abbas. Listen, they're Muslims. Let's go with them. There's barakat in here. Let's go here. This gives just more. This is the seerat, my friend. This is how you understand it. When you understand seerat, you get the right perspective on life. How to do things in life in the right way. This is why the encouragement of learning seerat. And when you have the right perspective in life, then you would know how to choose between right and wrong. You will know how to identify right and how to identify wrong and how to react to wrong and how to react to right in the right way. These are all things that you understand when you have the right perspective. If you don't have the right perspective, you will always make mistakes, and we will always make mistakes in practicing Islam. You will always make mistakes in practicing Islam. Sometimes, people say that, well, if we learn the seerat and if we use our aql and if we do these things, how do you know that we'll end up in the right way all the time? No, you're right. You can end up in the wrong thing also. You can end up with the wrong conclusion also. It is true, you can end up in the wrong conclusion. People use the seerat of the Prophet to come and burn down the house of Imam Ali. Right? And what reason did they do that? Because they use the seerat of the Prophet. Right? They use the seerat of the Prophet to give the fatwa to kill Imam Hussein. What did they say? That Hussein has to be killed with the sword of his grandfather. They use the seerat. This is what we learned from the seerat. So obviously they reached the wrong conclusion. But when we use our reasoning, when we have a clean heart that is attached to Ahlul Bayt, then by using these things in the right way, then we gain the right perspective on the seerat. We will gain that, but we need to try this. We need to work on this. This is the only way to come closer and to be that which Imam Hussein wants us to be. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala. The second thing that we get from the seerats, other than the right perspective, the second thing that you get from seerat is humility. Really. By learning the seerat, we become humble. Really, we become humble. This is a natural way of making us look at ourselves in our reality and saying that we are not that good. When we learn the seerat, it is, for example, I said the seerat of the Prophet was that when he used to go in ruku or sujood, he would read the zikr at least 7 times. I'm saying at least. Sometimes he would just go on, and they won't know when he will get up. But at least he would read 7 times. Not in Jamaat prayer. In Jamaat he used to be like fast. Do it fast so everyone can go. But when he used to pray on his own, at least 7 times he used to do dhikr. Subhana Rabbiyal Azim al bihamdah. At least 7 times. Otherwise more. Now when we pray, honestly, how many times have we done this dhikr more than 3 times in our life? How many times have we done it? And you know what? It's alright. If you do it 3 times, it's okay. It's good. You have done it. You have done it right also. But at least when you do it 3 times and you haven't done it more, at least admit to the fact that I am nothing compared to Rasulullah. You see, this is what we get. It makes us humble. I'm not that good. You see, I'm not that good. Have you ever stood up to pray at night? Sometimes you just want to pray and you stood up to pray at night. Sometimes it happens in our life by accident, something happens. We lose our job or something, Say, well, I have nothing to wake up to, so might as well pray at night, Or we are afraid of something or some fear grabs us. So we start praying. Really, have you ever gone through the night in prayers? Could you have done it? Have you tried to do it? You see, a time comes when we can't, and we just say, it's all right, it's all right. Whatever you have done is good. However much you have done it is good. It's good. It's however much you have done it. It doesn't matter. But at least realize. Then you look at the seerat of Rasulullah. Then you look at the seerat of the Imams, and you say, you know what? I'm nothing compared to them. This is what you should get in your heart. This is what happens when you learn the seerat. When you look at their seerat and what they have done, then when you look at your own life, then you would know how much less you are. It brings tawadu. It brings humbleness, humility to us. This is what happens when you learn the seerat of the Prophet and Imams. It's a natural reaction. I'm nothing. Look at what they have done. I'm nothing. Right? Could I do that much? No way. I can't do that much. Right? Now obviously when we just look at their seerah, that's how we learn it. We become humble, my friends. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. When we see ourselves in this light, what we gain from the seerat, then you understand. When you have the right perspective, what it means is that you are looking at these things and knowing how to be amongst the people. When you become humble, then you become a different person. You look at things differently. Sirat gives that to us. When that gives it to us, then when you look at others, you will see you look at others with a different angle. You won't look at them that way. People who haven't understood Sirat, let me tell you how they are. And this happens a lot of times. And you might see it. You might reflect what I'm saying. Right? Just reflect it. What happens, my friends, whenever a person becomes religious, whenever a person becomes closer to Islam, whenever a person becomes revolutionary, you become revolutionary in this and that. You see, a lot of times when they do it without looking at the Sirat and practicing the Sirat and maintaining the Sirat, their attitude towards others is like they always begin to condemn others. When they look at others, they try to, look at these people, they don't even know that. Look at these people, they're cowards. Look at these people, they're losers. Look at these people, they're on the wrong side. Look at these people, they're hanging out with Zalim. Look at these people, they're doing this. They always condemn others because they don't understand the Sirat. If you understood the Sirat, you won't be laughing at others, you will be crying for them. Why are you laughing at others for? You should be crying for them. Did the prophets or did the imams laugh at others and say, oh, look at these people, they're misguided? Or did they used to cry for them? Pray for their guidance? How did they used to react? Look at the Sirat. Why? When we don't have the Sirat and have religion, then that religion takes us away from our goal and destroys our own self. This is what happens. Why are you laughing at others for? If a person is, if you see a person suffering, would you laugh at him or would you want to help him? It's natural, right? You see someone, being hurt or someone, under a car, right? Would you laugh? Oh, look at this car, he's, suffering under this car. Or would you be like, let me go and help him? What would your natural instinct say? You see that the same thing happens when you see people misguided. When you see people on the wrong path, you're crying for them, you're not laughing at them. Why are religious people laughing at these people? Is because they haven't understood the Sirat yet. They haven't understood, they don't have the right perspective on things. And this is what harms a religious person the most. It harms his faith. It makes him empty inside. His deen becomes outside, it's all good. Inside, it's empty. The reason it's empty because he hasn't practiced the Sirat of the Prophet yet. He hasn't looked at it yet and done it, doesn't have the right perspective yet on things. This is why Sirat is important. Imam Hussain is telling us to practice the Sirat for this reason. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Prophet was not understood because of the fact that the people really could not digest, one, his leniency and his compassion on one side, or the places where he was strict and severe. They couldn't understand it. Same thing happened with Imam Ali. Now, one example I'll give you, and you'll see this, right? And obviously, right now, it's different than that time. There's a reason behind it, and I don't want to get into why that reason is, how this happened. But you see that, just understand this way, we are different than the people who lived in the time of Rasulullah and Imam Ali. We are different. Just understand that much. Right? The people who lived in the time of the Prophet and Imam Ali, they didn't view them as masoom. They didn't view them with this respect that we have. Our view of the Prophet and the Imam is completely different. We would never behave with them like the people at that time did. Why? Because we have been taught so much. We have learned the history. Karbala has taught us so much that now we have this respect and honor for them. We would never treat with them the way that they did. A lot of times. And you see that Rasulullah, how he used to behave with the people. You know, a person, as Rasulullah was walking by, he was a Bedouin. You know, and they don't have, akhlaq or discipline or, manners and this and that. He wanted to get the attention of the Prophet. He said, Ya Rasulullah, and he pulled his abba. He pulled his abba. He pulled it in such a way that the abba caught in the neck of the Prophet. Pulled him very hard. And you know that, for example, your neck is pulled and it scratched him very hard. He just pulled it. Ya Rasulullah, he just pulled it. He didn't mean any harm. Nothing like, he just wanted to get attention. And he was just, ill-mannered, so he just pulled it hard. Now imagine, you get hurt. Now obviously at first your reaction will be, what are you doing? You have the manners or something? And then you'll say, okay, now what do you want? But you see, it hurt him so much. Everyone saw that, it made him wince in pain. But as soon as the Prophet turned around, he just smiled at him and says, yes, how may I help you? How may I help you? Nothing. No reaction. Nothing to show him that he has done something, to hurt him. Right? Not making him feel guilty in any way. See, this is difficult. When you look at these examples of the Prophet, when you look at the seerah of the Prophet, it's difficult. How do you maintain that calm and how do you maintain that balance even in such a situation? A lot of times, people could not follow the Prophet's seerah. And we are saying that, listen, it's difficult. No one said it's easy. But the reward of following it is great. That's what you should look at and say that I have to try this. I have to try this. This is an encouragement for us to follow the seerah of the Prophet. So, seerah of the Prophet wasn't understood by people then. Yes, but right now, if we were there at that time, we would never behave with the Prophet like that. They used to shout at the Prophet, Ya Rasulullah, come here, let me tell you something. Would we do something like that? Right? We would never even imagine that we would do something like that. Allah had to stop them. They used to come outside the house of the Prophet. Rasulullah, come out for a minute. Leave your wives alone. Come out for a minute. Would we do that? Right? We would never. Allah had to stop them. Don't shout from the streets to the Prophet, Right? Read Surah Hujurat, you'll see how many places Allah is trying to stop the people from doing such things. But we are the children of Ashura. We have trained under the school of Ashura. We would never do something like that. Ashura established Ahlul Bayt and the respect of the Prophet and Ahlul Bayt in our hearts. Right? So we would never do that. So obviously when we look at ourselves, to make sure that that seerah that they practice is what we also try to practice and put in our lifestyle. This is how we reach Ahlul Bayt. Now let me give you an example that I said. You see, if you ever see the Prophet love someone, if you ever see the Prophet be enamored by someone, it's not because the Prophet is playing favoritism. Oh, he likes him because of personal likeness. No, whenever Rasulullah does something, ma yantiku anil hawa. Right? He doesn't do it, with his own nafs, He's doing what the will of Allah is. If he looks at someone, it's because there's something to look at in him. If he's enamored by someone, it's because there's something in him to get enamored by. If he loves someone, it's because that person is worthy of love. One of the seerat that we see, and this as a seerat I'm saying, not as one-time practice, as a seerat of the Prophet, is that every time, no matter where he was, where he would be, every time he would see, whenever Imam Ali used to come in the gathering, Rasulullah's eyes will be transfixed on Imam Ali. Right? No matter who was in the gathering. Right? Everyone would notice that. Every time Imam Ali used to be in the gathering, Rasulullah would just look at him. That's it. Now imagine this, if, like for example, I'm here. Now, for example, if I look at one of the brothers all the time in the speech, everyone will be like, who's that guy, What's his relationship with, What's his relationship with him, I mean, everyone would notice, right? If you're looking at someone all the time, you'll see that people notice that. Right? Now, how would you look at it? See, this is where I want you to understand. How would you look at the seerat? Instead of saying, okay, let's see what's in Ali that's making the Prophet look at him, or would you see what's wrong with the Prophet that he's looking at him? You see, understand this. People used to condemn the Prophet that he always discriminates. Right? He always plays this favoritism game with Ali. He always likes Ali more than us. Instead of seeing why he likes Ali, is there something in him to be liked? You see, when Rasulullah, he's the messenger of Allah, if he's looking at Ali all the time, it means there's something in Ali that enchants him. That he knows there's something beautiful in Ali. By looking at Ali, we know the fact that Ali is that good, that when he comes, there's nothing else that's valuable around him. There's nothing else that's worthy around him, right? And you look at Ali and you're like, subhanallah. I mean, who else would I look at here? Imagine that. Who else would I have my eyes on here if you are here? So obviously when Ali is here, there is no way that Rasulullah would focus on anyone. And we see that in a seerat. By looking at him, it shows that Ali was good. Ali is that good. My friends, this is just, understand, this is how we look at the seerat. Right? That's all I wanted to mention. And you know what? Rasulullah was transfixed by Ali. He loved him that much because Ali was that good. He was worthy of love. Really, Ali was like that. And you know who took Ali's heart? That who Ali fell in love with? Ali fell in love with Abul Fadl Abbas. Abbas was special to Ali. Every time Abbas would be there, Ali would just look at him. Right? Ali was just look at Abbas. When Abbas would be in a gathering, there's a reason why he's called Qamar Bani Hashim. The reason that he's called Qamar Bani Hashim, my friends, Ali fell in love with Abbas. Not because there are many other, he had 3 other brothers, Abbas had 3 other brothers. But you see that the way Ali dealt with Abbas was different. Because Abbas, when you look at Abbas, then you understand who was Abbas, that he took the heart of Ali. What kind of a person is Abbas that he took the heart of Ali? You're crying for Abbas. Why do you cry for Abbas? What do you cry for Abbas? How much do you know about Abbas? Tell me honestly, how many books have you read on the life of Abbas that you know about him that is making you cry so much? Tell me. How many books have you read about Abbas? You have heard a few sentences in Masaib regarding Abbas and you're crying. That's all that you know about him? Then what has made Abbas so beloved to you? How did Abbas capture your hearts? How did Abbas capture your hearts? You haven't even read any book about him. You just read a few sentences, heard a few sentences from Majalis regarding him, and Abbas has enchanted your minds and your hearts in such a way that you cry for him in a very bad way. Look at the way you cry for Abbas. You're crying like that. What has Abbas done to you? Right? Did Abbas come and embrace you and looked into your eyes with his beautiful eyes? He said, no, Abbas never did that to me. Did Abbas come in your dream and said that, listen, I'm here for you, and you have seen the face of Abbas? Is that why you're crying? No. Nothing like that happened. Did Abbas come to you and said, I will fulfill a hajat for you, and you're crying for him because you have this relationship? No. Then why are you crying for Abbas? He said, because Abbas is good. Abbas is good and he has affected my heart. That's it. So Abbas is that good that you haven't seen him. You haven't witnessed him. You haven't been around him. You haven't smelled his fragrance. You haven't looked into his beautiful eyes. You haven't seen him smile. You haven't done any of those things, but he has enchanted your mind. He has affected you in this way. If Abbas has affected you in that way, just imagine how Abbas has affected the heart of Hussein. Just imagine how Abbas has affected Hussein. Imagine how much Hussein is in love with Abbas. Imagine what kind of effect he has on Zainab. What kind of effect Abbas has on Zainab? You see, imagine this is something, if you know Abbas, then it would be different. Zainab knows him. Zainab has raised him. Imagine how much Abbas has affected Zainab. Subhanallah. My friends, just here, and I will continue this, but one thing I will stop here to say something, you know. You have entered the month of Muharram. This month of Muharram, you have entered this. One thing, when you enter the month of Muharram, you have entered into the haram of Imam Hussein. And by wearing these black clothes, you have worn the ihram of this haram. You have become muhrim. So when you have become muhrim for Hussein, when you have become muhrim in the haram of Hussein, do one thing. Do not call yourself unworthy. Don't call yourself unworthy. I'm nothing. No, don't say that. That would be an insult to this ihram. That will be an insult to this haram. And it has nothing to do with pride. It has nothing to do with arrogance, my friends. It has nothing to do with that. You all are better than that, and you should know this. My friends, when you enter this ihram, and when you come to this azam, when you come to this majlis for Hussein, you enter this ihram, then don't call yourself unworthy. Because this won't be right. This won't be right. You know why? Understand this, who you are. It is not who you are, you know. And this is, again, I'm going back to the seerat. I want to give you this one seerat, and inshallah from there we will go on and end this, you know. And then you can give your condolences, you know. One time Rasulullah was walking in the streets of Medina. He went around some kids. He saw a kid there, and he started to hug that kid. He started to kiss that kid so affectionately. People came to him and said, you know, he's not your son. I mean, who's this? Why are you doing this for him? So much love that you show for him. Why are you showing so much love for him? Because you know what he said? Because he's a friend of Hussein. Meaning a friend of Hussein becomes such that Rasulullah shows so much affection to him. Ya Rasulullah, we are telling you we are the friends of Hussein. We are the friends of Hussein. Maybe we are not good friends. We are not that good, but we are the friends of Hussein. Rasulullah would say, do not call yourself unworthy anymore. Don't call yourself unworthy anymore. If you feel you fell short for Hussein, you will go back home tonight. You will go back your home tonight and you will go there and rest in your house while you know that Ahlul Bayt are still in jail. You know that Ahlul Bayt are still suffering. You know that Hussein and his family are still suffering. But you know it's alright. Do not feel bad about that. Because you know what? Even the best have fallen short of Hussein. Even the best have fallen short of Hussein. They're ashamed of Hussein. What better example can I give you than Abbas? Who can be better than Abbas? But you see, Abbas fell short of Hussein. When he was lying near the river, he felt ashamed. He said, Hussein, I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed that I could not bring water to the children. I'm ashamed of this. If Abbas can fall short of Hussein, then who are you? Do not feel bad about that. Just know that you are in the haram of Imam Hussein. Now when we look at Abbas, now we know that if Abbas is like this, really Abbas, it was very difficult for Abbas. Very difficult for Abbas. We know this, La ilaha illallah. How can I say this? I remember this story that a friend of mine in Iran told me this story. In regards to Abbas, regarding, sometimes some things you understand in a very different way. He said, that when I was young, and they have this tazia. The tazia is like, for example, a drama they do, for everyone to reenact Karbala. This and that. And they were going to reenact that when Abbas came to the tents to seek permission to leave. When Abbas came to the tents to seek permission to leave, so Abbas would go into the tents where the children are. He would seek halaliyat from them and said, make it halal on me. Please, I ask you forgiveness that I could not do anything for you all. He would do that, right? So one person was acting like Abbas. He would come and he said, I was a child then, and I was one of the orphans of Imam Hussein in the tents, the children who were in the tents. When Abbas came to the tents of the children, he would seek, ask them that I'm leaving, this and that. So when he would come, they were told him that, listen, just say, Ammu Ab. It means, uncle, water, we are thirsty, water, please give us water, like that. This person came and he gave the wording that Abbas gave to the children. He says, children of Hussein, I'm sorry that I could not help you more. I'm sorry that I'm leaving you in this situation. I am sorry that I'm doing this. And he picked up this child. He says, please forgive me. I'm leaving you like this. And then he said, he looked at this and he remembered Abbas. He remembered how Abbas would have been and him facing this hardship. He just started to cry. He said, I couldn't make myself ask him for water. I couldn't make myself ask him for water because Abbas, you already are in such a situation. How can I make it more difficult for you? When Abbas went into the tents of Hussein, you know who Abbas was? I'm telling you this, my friend. Abbas said that every time I wanted to kiss the hands of Hussein, I would feel ashamed. I wouldn't want to kiss the hands of Hussein, so I'd go to the children of Hussein. I would kiss their feet. I would kiss their feet. This is Abbas. So when Abbas looked into the tents where the children of Hussein were, the children's eyes were out of their sockets looking at Abbas. Looking at Abbas, thinking that lest Abbas goes to the battlefield. Because not an hour had passed that Ali Akbar had gone and they saw his body come back. Qasim had gone and his body come back. They didn't want Abbas to go. Uncle, don't leave us here. Uncle, don't leave us here. And when they saw that, when they heard that, Abbas looked at them and then he threw down his sword. He says, give me the water bag. He took the water bag in order to get the water for these children. He said, let me fulfill one wish for you. Let me fulfill your wish for you. And he was not able to see their thirst. So he went with the water bag. When Abbas went with the water bag, he was gone. But the children are still there waiting for Abbas. You know, when the war was over, when Imam Hussein was killed, the children were still, they didn't know where Abbas was. They didn't know what happened to him. Many of them, when they were forced to leave their tents, they were running in the battlefield. He said, Abu Abbas, Abu Abbas. Ya Muhammad bihaqq Muhammad, Ya Allah bihaqq Ali, Ya Fatir as-samawat bihaqq Fatir. Ya Muhsin bihaqq Hasan, Ya Qadim al-Hasan bihaqq Hussein. Oh Allah, give us the tawfiq to be on the right path. Give us the wisdom to understand your guidance. Hasten the reappearance of our Imam. Make us a help of earthly comes. Raise our understanding and marifat of Ahl al-Bayt. Increase the love of Ahl al-Bayt in our hearts and the hearts of our children. Matam Hussein.
Ya Hussein.